Welcome to You Sip, I Sip, a weekly podcast with Northern Lights Winery founder Doug Bell, exploring the experiences from leaders in business, social media, and family. Now here's this week's exceptional guest.
Welcome to You Sip, I Sip. I'm sitting with Owen Foley, owner of a business empire in Prince George. Very well-known entrepreneur here. He has Birch and Boar, Nancy O's restaurant, as well as Batula Burning. And I never know what you're going to do next because it always seems to come out of left field where you've got something you've been working on for several years, haven't told anybody about. And then it seems like it just jumps into the community and it's always taken up with open arms because everything you do is so excellent.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to be here. And nice that you provided some libations.
Well, you're going to sip and I'm going to sip. We're actually drinking some of the Cuvée Blanche, which is our Wine Masters blend at Northern Lights Winery. And you have made a really cool product out of this before you even told me. I think you just stole a bottle or something, went home, and then you came back with this amazing mustard, which just talks about the innovation that you're always providing within your businesses. So we're going to get into that and a lot more. We've got a ton to dive into today, and the listeners are going to be very excited to hear about your story. Now, we've known each other since university, and maybe at the time you weren't an entrepreneur or a business person, but where did your love for opening up local businesses and industry start at?
I guess just seeing the voids in the market, I guess, and see an opportunity. There's needs that aren't being met, and I said, hey, I think I got a vision and a way to meet some of those needs.
Yeah, and so the first vision you ever had was Nancy O's, and I'd like you to maybe take us back to where the name came from and the process that you underwent to start this business, which has become a legend within Northern BC to some degree.
Thanks. It's going on 12 years now. I think this year will be year 13 coming up in October. And actually, to your point a moment ago, we actually did start it in university.
That's right.
I was still, I hadn't graduated yet. I had 2 more years left where, my grades plummeted, which I wasn't too worried about. But I'm sure my folks are happy enough that I didn't just drop out and I finished my degree, and I definitely got some value out of that for sure. At the time, I think it was really at a kind of a low point in the history of, or at least the modern history for Prince George and its culinary opportunities. I think there was very little restaurants out there that you would say were worth going to on a special occasion, and there was not very many pubs. I mean, our favorites, Sergeant O'Flaherty's, had shut down maybe a couple of years before.
Yeah, you and me went there several times for sure. Those are experiences we can't talk about on You Sip, I Sip.
No, that's a more of an adult podcast, I guess. We had great times there. It was there. Student nights, Thursday nights. It was always hopping, and then I was really like, oh man, our next favorite pub was CHP, and then it's like, oh, all right, we gotta go up to College Heights every day. Every time we're gonna go out there. Cab rides were getting too expensive for me, so I thought I needed something closer to home, someplace that, and I really just wanted to. We wanted to create a place that myself and my Garrett, my partner Garrett Fedorkiw would actually want to hang out at a lot of the time, with some atmosphere and some good food and lots of good choice in drink selection goes a long way too to hang out.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say that most university students at one time or another think about the local bars and restaurants that they're hanging out at, and they tie this like emotional attachment to them because it is such a fun point in their life, and they always wonder, well, could I do it better? Or if I was to do it, this is the way I would set it up. And you actually took that and then implemented it. And so part of that though might have been the fact that your family has a history of business, and you kind of grew up in a business with your dad. Can you tell us a little bit about how maybe that affected your confidence in building something like that at such a young age?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my dad always had his own business as an engineering firm here, and he was fortunate enough to be able to sell it a few years ago too. And growing up, I always had to see how hard my dad had to work too, and that kind of helped to instill a bit of a sense of work ethic, I guess, and knowing kind of that, probably helped me understand that really when you're doing this, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still there, it's still yours. It's not like when you have a regular job and you can go home and forget about everything all the time, and the buck stops with you. So you're always going to be responsible for whatever happens in that business, and if, it's hitting the fan, you're gonna be the one that has to go and fix those issues.
Yeah. As an entrepreneur and a business person, you are much like a firefighter in terms of the fact that you have to be there whenever any problem exists. And that can be really difficult for many people who are getting into business. You saw that at firsthand with your dad, so maybe that wasn't surprising. But being in the restaurant industry is a very different industry. Did you have experience prior to this?
Yeah, I had. And to your point about problems, I mean, I often tell people that are thinking about getting into business or doing anything like you better have good problem solving skills. I've learned to fix hundreds of things that I never thought I would before, and just to limp through and just making calls left, right, and center about just trying to make things quick, and because it's Friday night and your dishwasher just broke, and you got to make adjustments to being able to address that so that your service doesn't suffer. But I mean, how I got started really, because I had been working in the industry for a while before. Actually, I had recently, the most recent job I had right before we opened NCO's, which is quite a while ago, was actually at North 54. I'd worked there kind of on and off for about 2 years, when I wasn't tree planting in the summer and going through university. And so that was a good bit, and I learned a good bit of fine dining, and got to do a bit of serving, a bit of bartending, a little bit of everything. It was definitely a different experience from some of my previous experience, which is essentially first job I got was bartending in a pub in Dublin. My first day was about 2 days after my 18th birthday.
So you traveled to Dublin, Ireland, and you got a job. Now, I would imagine, I mean, if in anywhere in the world they take liquor seriously, I would imagine it's in Dublin, the home of Guinness beer. Did you learn some things there? Is that where your passion kind of developed for the industry?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I moved over there for kind of a gap year, I guess, after high school, and I started. I was only 17 when I showed up for the first month there. My uncle over there just gave me a job in a furniture warehouse, moving furniture and delivering it, which was kind of a neat experience actually. I also got to see some different neighborhoods in Dublin that I would never have normally seen, and but I mean, after a few weeks of that, it was I didn't come over for a gap year to move furniture and not meet anyone my own age or anything like that. So I don't think he understood that it wasn't going to last. So I was about to turn 18, so I went shopping around looking for any pub that would take me, and found a really cool one right in the city center. Right close to the main shopping districts. Temple Bar is just right around the corner of the main university there, and it's called the International. And I started right after my 18th birthday. day one, first Monday morning, got me in there. It's like, all right, you're here to haul in a keg delivery. I'm pretty sure the owner didn't want to have to do it themselves. So they definitely put me to work. And I think it was certainly a test to see if I would crumble, if I could haul in the keg delivery and stacking them, on my own. And I think being physically fit enough to do that probably got me to keep the job.
Yeah, got you in front of the customers eventually.
Exactly. Yeah. Not too soon after that afternoon, after I cleaned up a little bit, and they started showing me how to pour a pint, and definitely a simpler service back then, and they do take it more seriously. Like I wasn't a union employee. I was just some Canadian kid over there for a gap year, but a lot of the I did work with some of the senior folks at the pub. Like they were unionized employees, and there was this expected things that come with a unionized sort of job, and hour breaks and certain pay rates and benefits and stuff like that you don't see as prevalent throughout the industry over here. And there was training. They went to school for a little while.
Well, I remember being in Dublin when I was very young, and the experience inside the pubs was very different. I remember going into one pub, and this was during the Euro Cup, which of course football or soccer, as we call it in Canada, is very popular there. And the pubs are just packed, and there's people everywhere, and it is part of culture and part of life. Mm-hmm. And going up to the bar and ordering a Guinness, I remember waiting for about probably 10 minutes while the Guinness was properly, I can't remember what the terminology is, but the beer has to sit, and then they fill it up and it has to sit. And it was a very odd feeling as I was sitting there waiting. But, the culture of meeting people and the interactions people have within the pubs and restaurant settings in Ireland is a real thing. Yeah. Did you try and take some of those components and implement them into your restaurant when you? I
certainly think so, and I don't think it was necessarily done on purpose a lot of the time. We built Nancy O's. We didn't set out to build an Irish pub, and I still don't call it that. But you can certainly feel the influence in the decor and the atmosphere in the place, and that's something we really wanted to create. It was a warm atmosphere where you can meet people, and it's great. And I've seen that over the time. I've seen some great relationships form, marriages, people meeting their wife or husband, and it's pretty nice to have that feeling, and back in the. Back in Ireland, you had that. I mean, there was the Sunday afternoon sessions where the regulars just show up their instruments and sing songs and play some music, and the regulars that were often eccentric. some of them really stick with me. There was definitely some fun stories with some of those regulars, and it was a wonderful experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world for sure.
Yeah. Nancy O's the name. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to you?
So Nancy O, she is both mine and my partner Garrett's godmother. So our we get together. So my family, Garrett's family, and Nancy's family. The O'Malleys. Our families, we're all very close growing up. Our parents were all good friends, always, having parties together when they were probably more like our age or, and we so grew up close with all the siblings, grew up close, and often it seems like most of the children from whatever family have a godparent that's from the other families within that, and it just so happened to be that myself and Garrett got a wonderful godmother in Nancy.
That's awesome. The family is clearly really important to you, and actually you're a new father, so congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
When when your family came to Prince George and were developing, was there a real social circle that you were developing out within there, and what is the community like for your family?
That's wonderful. I mean, and you mentioned my dad earlier, and yeah, he came to Prince George a little over 40 years ago for, I think it was like a 6-week or a 6-month contract. He was he's from Ireland, but he was living in Vancouver at the time, and came up here, and he basically had a better time in the short period that he was in Prince George, and made more friends in the time being here in Prince George, better connections than he did in a couple of years living in Vancouver. It was just Prince George was a nicer, friendlier place to be, and easier to, I think, to make deeper connections. Mm-hmm. And they certainly gravitate to, there was definitely a lot of our Irish heritage showing through there. A lot of their friends is, they formed the Celtic Club group here in town, and so there was a lot of that influence growing up, because a lot of their friends also had Irish or Scottish or Welsh backgrounds, and so that definitely became part of our upbringing within all these families, and that really kind of showed.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. And so you've known your business partner Garrett for a long time. Did you grow up together, and did you always think you might kind of join forces one day?
Our whole lives, we've known each other because our parents were very good friends from before we were even born, he was a 3 years older than me. So when we were kids, 3 years makes a big difference. So it's not like, we were often around each other all the time, out at the lake and stuff like that. Not necessarily like playing together as little kids, but, once, we were in our early 20s together, we hung out a lot more, and, we would go to the pubs and, go sit in the hot tub of the pool and talk about ideas and about different business ideas, because he obviously had a very entrepreneurial minded outlook on things, and he was always looking around and making deals, and I still don't think he's ever had a real job.
Well, you could say it's not even a real job, but you clearly work hard. And so do you remember the moment where you and Garrett decided to open up your first business together?
Yeah. Well, it was the summer of 2009. It's been a while back. I mean, I was only like 24 years old, and he had been basically, sniffing around at some different possibilities of places to open something up, and not necessarily with me, but it was definitely something he was really interested in. He didn't necessarily have the background in the industry, but he definitely had a passion for for food and for creating something that would be really appreciated in the community. I know he was kicking around the Migos location, even the Twisted Cork location and stuff, and kicking the tires a few places, and then this spot opened up where it had been the European Bistro, was where which probably most people would have remembered it from like the 90s and I guess early 2000s, and so it was kind of cool, like long skinny place. Had a commercial kitchen in it already, of course, and so it was relatively easy to upgrade. Some of those expensive big ticket items like a hood vent and and the kitchen stuff are already done. And we were young and dumb, and we're really bootstrapping it. We didn't spend a lot of money opening that place. There's definitely some real sweat equity and some help from some friends and family to get some of the work done, and it's come a long way since. But in the beginning, it was a little ghetto in areas if you look beneath the surface, but it's worked out pretty well.
Well, you can really tell that you put a lot of sweat equity into it. And I remember when you were developing it out, because we knew each other a little bit and we discussed kind of the things that were going into it. I had started my business career taking over my family group of companies in 2007, so just a couple of years earlier. And what I remember about when you opened it was that immediately it felt like the place to be in terms of the community, not just the university, but people wanted a place of belonging. And it was central in downtown in a time when people were looking to support the community and support new innovation. So it seemed like it was the right place at the right time, but I feel like maybe there was more to it than that in terms of your planning and your process of developing out that experience.
Yeah. So, and definitely we had some strategies. Monday to Friday lunch crowd was kind of where we knew it was like, okay, like we can get that crowd. There's thousands of people downtown every day working, and and they could use some more options. And so to try to make a quick, speedy service for them, that's why we always started doing the counter service there. You can operate with less staff and get people in and out for their lunch breaks a lot faster. So that really became like, our, part of our core business that we knew that's like, all right, we can operate a profitable business by just opening for lunches, and that would keep the lights on and go well. And then, but I mean, obviously we weren't going to be happy enough just being a lunch place. So in order to get that dinner crowd and the eat later crowd, we knew that we were going to have to make sure that there was something to bring people back downtown after they've left for the workday, or to keep them there once if they're down there. So making sure, having great food was obviously paramount. So that had to be an essential thing, and it's something that we've always strive to try to be at the forefront of in the community, and try to be a leader in demonstrating quality and offering things that aren't necessarily widely available already. So that was essential, to keep people coming back. That alone you can rest your business on right there. Having that warm, friendly atmosphere, that service is important too. One thing, it's one of the reasons though. We wanted to kind of keep people later, and to try to get that was so that's one of the reasons why we started doing live entertainment too. Getting people after 7 or 8 o'clock to come down and for a specific reason, kind of have a good night out downtown, and that was an important thing. Some extra to draw people in and come and have some drinks and relax and socialize and meet new people and having more of an experience. Activate the place for all hours of the day.
Well, you hear a lot of restaurant owners talk about the things that you're saying, but there's something more that you've done. So number one, I think, is consistency. It's been very clear you've now been here for a long enough time that people know what to expect, but also it's about consistency of execution and the thoughtfulness about how you integrate the community. And that comes across, of course, in the in-person experience, but you've also got a digital component that you kind of started relatively early on Facebook and on other social media platforms to involve the community. Can you tell me anything about how that developed?
Yeah, so obviously, social media has evolved in the last 13 years since we started. So, there's a little more on the Instagram, and we maybe we haven't activated some of the newer popular platforms so much lately yet, or as of yet. But I think for us, it wasn't always about just trying to sell ourselves or our product all the time on social media. And, because I think that's a lot of what businesses do often, just, all right, just all they're doing is like today's special or today's thing that they're trying to sell you on every time. And, the social media platforms are a good tool for doing those sort of things. But I think it's, sharing things in the community and telling about good things that are happening and what you're doing that aren't just, posts that aren't just purely trying to sell this person a burger or sell this person a pizza or a beer or something like that. I think that's important because, it's not, it's, as pretty as that piece of food might look on your screen, and it does get engagement, and people are gonna and ha about it and share that, which is awesome, and that's what we're aiming for. There's only so much of that people are going to pay attention to, I think.
One thing I would say is that your food pictures, that is food porn epitomized, right? Because it always looks delicious. And every time I see one of the food photography pictures that you have, I instantly get hungry. And I think that's important. You own 2 of, I believe, the top 3 restaurants on TripAdvisor in Prince George. Now, Batula Burning and Nancio's are very well known within the community, and it is the place that generally a lot of people traveling to Prince George come to experience. So when you're getting a lot of these guests or travelers and people are coming to experience you as part of the culture of Prince George, that's a very important kind of role that you have within the city. When do you take that seriously, and do you work with your staff to try and bring more of the culture of Prince George to these guests who maybe don't necessarily have the firsthand experience?
When I'm interacting with guests that I know are from out of town, and usually I can tell, first if I've seen you before, or if they look like somebody that's like, if they lived here, they would probably be here regularly, that maybe that part of the crowd or something like that. I always try to engage, see if they're, just someone, that maybe lives in the northern region that comes to town, go to Costco and the dentist, or that sort of a traveler that we know and love and see, and they'll have to be a little bit more familiar, and engaging with them and talking about what they're there for, and just being a warm, friendly face, because often when you're in a different town, and you go to a store or something like that, these are typical mundane interactions for most people all the time, and you're not always, you might, I'm not saying they're going to get bad service at another store or cafe or restaurant, but it might just be, it's just that employee's just, it's just a mundane interaction for them, and it's not, and they're not going to go above and beyond. So I like to try to, have that and engage them and genuinely, ask what they're here for, and how did they hear about the place, and maybe share a bit about the story of the business. And at Batula Burning, people always want to talk about the oven and where it's from, and they're always usually impressed by the setting and stuff. So I like to kind of make them feel welcome and warm in that, and I try to instill that with the staff as much as possible, and I know it definitely works when they do try to engage in those, and which it can be tougher sometimes with some of the younger staff that are maybe not as comfortable talking to older folks and having just a genuine conversation and genuine interaction. But I know when they do, those are usually when you're going to get great feedback, and sometimes they put that feedback online, and that definitely helps the cycle of bringing in new out of town guests.
Yeah, and you've done that at both of your restaurants, as well as at Birch and Boar, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But I wanted to recollect on a story I remember from the winery when we first opened, and it is very similar because the interaction that you will have as a guest, as an owner of a business, you can try and do all the training in the world, but it's always going to be very different than when you train a staff member to do it, because your business, you care about it, you have all the history and the stories inside of you. And for the first 4 years of Northern Lights Winery, I got the opportunity to meet thousands and thousands of people over the counter, and I would make wine from 7 a.m. to about noon, and then I'd come out and I'd be in the wine shop for a little while, and then I'd go back and I'd make wine till 10 p.m. Go home, sleep, and do it all over again, right? And but the connection that I made with people from all across the world, and BC for sure, and was really special. That meant a lot to me. Is that one of the things that you do and why you love it?
Yeah, and I think it's important, and every time a visitor, whether they're from near or far, has a great positive interaction with someone like that in our community. It gives them a warm feeling about when they recall being in our community, and it every time that happens, it raises our profile, I think, as a community, and is going to it's gonna leave that impression in people's hearts.
Yeah, that one-to-one connection is something you just can't replace with anything else. So after you became successful with the Nancio's restaurant, you started building Batula Burning, and there was a big fire.
Yeah.
What happened, and how did that set you back?
It was a blessing in disguise at the end, because we built up bigger and better than we would have, but definitely it was pretty devastating at the beginning, and not just for ourselves. I felt far worse for ourselves than for ourselves. I felt so much worse for our neighbor's homework next door, who had bought the building on the other side that also went up in flames with ours, and they had only just reopened a month or two before after buying this building and renovating it. It was really cool. It was such an old historic building too, and and they really used that history in the building and that renovation. That was really that was pretty heartbreaking that they went up to. But if anyone that knew the two buildings knew that those two buildings were so intertwined, because the same owner had owned them both for a very long time. So there was passages and stuff, and I was joking with Anthony, who owns Homework, and the one day, like, after they opened, and we had the building between Nancio's and Homework, where Batula is now, that we had gutted, and we're preparing to renovate it for a smaller version of Batula Burning. Joking about with Anthony is like I could just punch through this drywall right here and grab some product off your shelves. Like, there was one point where there was until we finished our renovations on our side, there was only just a piece of drywall separating our construction site to their store. But yeah, in the end, though, of course, it set us back time-wise. It set us back well over a year, but we took it as an opportunity to build bigger and better, and which is what we did. We had the 2 stories and had a great outdoor patio out back, and these big high ceilings and wood beams that we wouldn't have had in the old place. It was the place we were renting. It was a pretty crappy building. I mean, we would have made it look nice, and honestly, now after having gone through the whole construction of the new place, I have no idea how we were ever going to get that oven in the building. I assumed we were going to basically take the front of the building off, like the windows are very big, and try to maneuver it in. But we ended up building the building around the oven afterwards, and
So was the oven in the fire, or did
No.
it? How did that escape? Because maybe tell us a little bit about your oven for those who haven't been to Batula Burning in Prince George yet.
Yeah, so it's pretty special. It's it was made by a little old Italian man named Mario Cunto in Naples. Of course the home of Neapolitan style pizza, and so it had to be shipped. Like, we had ordered it several months before, so it had to be made and then shipped over. Of course, you can't just can't just pop a 7,000 pound oven on a plane and ship it direct to. So, it took a long journey through, some ships and stuff like that, and rail from Texas. And actually there was a strike in the port in Texas, I think, that delayed the oven coming by several weeks. And that actually saved it from being in the fire, which is pretty amazing. Obviously things like, oh, it's a wood-fired oven, should be survive that, no problem. But because it was new, it needed to be cured, which meant starting out with a really small fire and over several weeks building it hotter and hotter and hotter to cure it. So being engulfed in flames, as it might have been if it was in the fire, it might have cracked the oven. It wouldn't have likely survived. But so we just ended up putting it in storage until it was ready to come down to its permanent home.
Wow.
And but yeah, it's a pretty special item. It gets pretty hot. It's super heavy. I always tell kids always come in and are asking about it. It's always a wonderful experience and interaction. Sharing with a lot of kids and adults, of course, too, about it, and how it weighs about 7,000 pounds. I always tell kids that it weighs more than your parents' vehicles, and they're like, that always brightens their eyes, and it goes, and it can go almost twice as hot as your oven at home, and it weighs so much we had to reinforce the floor underneath it.
I mean, it's very serendipitous that if there had not been a strike in that port at that time, you may not have had that oven, or you may have been delayed even further out. It's a beautiful piece of architecture. The building is incredible. It's nice. It's bright. It's warm. And it's a different feel than Nancio's, but you still get the warm hospitality that you're very famously known for. And with that, where was the inspiration for moving from this, Irish style pub restaurant, warm, intimate, into this big open space with Neapolitan pizza?
Well, I mean, I guess first was part of the Neapolitan style pizza, and I guess for me, years before, I'd been backpacking around in Europe and in Italy, and just thinking like, there's no pizza like this around, like in Birch, like everything's the standard like North American style, and which I'm sure it's still a guilty pleasure for me, for sure, but I'll eat pizza from just about anywhere. But there's nothing that sort of thing, and we want to make something that's a little more elevated and more of an experience than your typical takeout pizza that you get from that we're all familiar with. And Garrett kind of also, I think, independently to always thought that a pizza place would kill you, or something that's not your standard sort of fare that you get everywhere else. And so we both believed in it, in the idea. So we just said move forward, and the big openness of the architecture of the building that we see was definitely it was not necessarily part of the original design, because the original design was in that older building that used to be a secondhand shop next door to us, and it would have been a smaller menu, and but opportunity knocked when that fire happened, and we thought like, well, we can go bigger and better, and why not give the idea a setting that it really deserved.
So I'm very fortunate to work with family here at the winery. I took over my family group of companies in 2007. My father, although he's retired, still comes in and does carpentry or strategic planning or whatever we need.
That's got to stay busy.
You got to keep him busy. And I also get a chance to work with my sister. Well, you are not necessarily working directly with family. You're working with this business partner for 13 years who you've known for the entirety of your life. There's probably a lot of work you've had to do to maintain that relationship.
Certainly, I mean, Garrett, he is family, and his family is family to me in every sense of the word, really, to me. So, they have been a huge. Both of our families have been incredibly supportive for years about this. Our folks are just about our most regular customers. We'll see them gather Nancio's every Friday evening. With a bunch of their friends, and it's a standing reservation, there, and it's been a great experience, and certainly even both of our sisters have served at some point at Nancio's as well. I think Kira, my sister, even worked at the kitchen for a little bit too, they've been a great help. And my mom's helped paint the walls and and make some lights and stuff like that in the early days as well. But with Garrett, partner, I mean, we've I think. I don't think in 13 years we've ever had like a heated argument about anything. I mean, generally logic prevails, and if we both have a different idea of something, we'll share it. I mean, usually if it's something not major, if he thinks we should do one thing and I think we should do another thing. I mean, if he felt really strongly about it and I was kind of like didn't have as strong of opinion, you just you go with what he wants to do on that, and vice versa. If one person is gonna be the one that actually does the work to make that, when that decision's made, then usually they get get to be the tiebreaker. And certainly there's been hard times, but it's been great having a partner that's willing to put in the work and be there day in, day out. And it certainly is nice when you want to go on holidays, mm-hmm. and you're leaving it in the hands of somebody that has the same vested interest that you do, and which has been wonderful. And
did you ever sit down and have a discussion about who would handle certain components of the business, and has that maybe played a role in the success, or have you been able to navigate that naturally?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it kind of happened, fairly naturally. Especially in the early days, certainly I had plenty of experience in serving and bartending, so a lot of that training on the front of house would have naturally just fallen to me, and familiar with even just the systems that are in place in the front of house. So, he had, we both went to university for business, so we can both read an income statement, but he was definitely more geared towards in the finances, and able to take on that, which definitely takes a huge weight off of my shoulders when he can handle a lot of that stuff. And in the beginning, especially before we had a bookkeeper and stuff like that, and and in the early days when we were bootstrapping as much as we could, and so he could do a lot of those ancillary roles, and kind of watch over the kitchen and the menu development as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now that you're a father, and I understand the restaurant industry is very difficult. You are there almost every time I've ever been there. And I've been to your establishments a lot. And so you're often there at night, you're there during the day, you're there a lot in terms of making sure the business is going well, interacting with your customers. Mm-hmm. How have you been able to balance home and work life, in particular now that you're a new dad?
Yeah, it certainly definitely has changed. And I'm definitely not there at night as much as I used to be, and that's really changed over even in the past few years leading up to fatherhood, and just kind of I guess getting older and being split more between different businesses and kind of taking care of the stuff during the day. So I definitely work closer to a 9-to-5 job than I have. It's certainly not by no means 9 to 5, but I always try to make the effort to make sure I'm there for one night a week. Usually Friday night I'll hang around. It's first night of the weekend's busy, and just to kind of be kind of a helper role. Like, I mean, I'll be hosting people, expediting, really be able to have a free role so I can have time to interact with my staff and with customers, and bounce back and forth between the two restaurants a little bit too, and check on things and see if things are going smooth, and being able to spend time with some of my staff that might not work during the days very much, and kind of see them a little bit and see how they're progressing, how they're doing, and help them about, and just kind of show them that I'm around. But definitely, it's, it wasn't really sustainable for me to go out to work, 12-hour days, most of the days of the week, forever, like I did in the earlier days. But because I used to, be bartending regularly on the evenings, and serving, as well as taking care of the back end stuff during the daytime. And that's, in order to grow, we really have to kind of be able to delegate a lot of those tasks, and start to trust your staff a little bit more. It's something I've really noticed when we went to open the second place in Batula Burning. Like, there's no way I can continue managing the day-to-day in and out things that at Nancio is on a regular basis, on a daily basis, as well as open up this new place. So you really have to start to let things go in order to grow.
Now, we've had this discussion with a few other guests on this show, and one of the things that's really difficult for a lot of business owners as they develop is when they grow, there's things they need to let go, so that they can get bigger. And some people choose to move forward and continue to grow and expand, and others actually would prefer to kind of keep it small. Are you planning on continuing to move forward and grow and expand, or do you want to try and keep this small footprint in this localized feel that you've maintained for so long?
There's been 1,000 ideas about new ventures, or growing the current ones, and I don't think we'll ever stop trying to do something new. It might be just small little improvements in the existing places, or ways to increase sales and new products, or things like that, or new ways to reach customers, or complete new ventures. But it's true, you can't manage the day to day if you're gonna grow in that sort of way, and especially when you're talking about multiple different ideas, multiple different ventures that are not just copies of each other, where there's really a whole new set of rules, a whole new set of systems that you can put into place, new menus, and it's really fun. It's inspiring when you're doing these different things. It keeps things interesting for sure. I get bored pretty quickly, so having something like that to push us is important, I think. And in order to kind of strive to be the best, you can't do that without trying to improve the systems that you already have, find efficiencies, and delegate, and help develop management teams that in order to kind of take care of the things that you really shouldn't be doing anymore if you're expecting yourself to try to grow in other ways.
Yeah. And I think it's also important for the community when you have somebody who has that vision, and as you grow, you can share that vision with your teams. And maybe it's not going to be 100% of you, but I think that most of the community would join me in saying that 85% of you in a growth capacity at each of these new ventures is probably so much better than what we could ask for it of a lot of business people and entrepreneurs. Now, you, as we're wrapping up here, I wanted to just share that you also own Birch and Boar, which is really cool. They make a lot of provisions. They've got, they make bread. They make a lot of charcuterie, some delicious local cured meats, all sorts of things.
Yeah, thanks. You can get some of those items at the bistro here.
You can, absolutely. And as I mentioned before, our executive chef would probably live in that facility if he could, because he loves it so much. Is there any other exciting new things coming down the pipeline that you can share with us, or are we going to just have to wait and see what you do in the future?
We do have one venture we're seriously considering on pursuing this year that I don't really want to get into too much detail.
Okay.
don't want to spoil anything or make anything maybe people anticipate something in case it doesn't happen right away or anything like that. But if things go according to plan, and maybe late this summer or fall, we might see something.
Well, there you go. Well, it's April right now when we're recording this. So when I'm listening to this later on and you're listening on your own podcast network, I really hope that we're getting a little closer, because we're all rooting for you, and we really appreciate what you do. If anyone would like to follow you or your businesses closer, where can they find you on some of the social media channels?
I just look at like Nancy OSPG on Facebook, Instagram, Batula Burning on Facebook, Instagram, Birch and Boar as well on multiple platforms. And it's something that we have a great team that handles those things, that are very great at taking those food shots that you love so much. And thank you, Doug. The winery here is really kind of helping as well as the community. We say we're Prince George has become almost like a destination. People have been talking about it now in the last few years, for Prince George being a destination for places with cool restaurants and cool dining experiences. And I know the local tourism board, and as well as provincially, actually has really been highlighting this business, is along with Batula Burning and Crossroads and stuff, places that have lots of wonderful places that are really wonderful settings in order to spend an evening.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Owen Foley, Nancy O's, Batula Burning, Birch and Boar, and a business potentially to be named later on in 2022. Really excited. Thank you very much for coming on. This has been another episode of You Sip, I Sip, and we can't wait to see you next time.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to You Sip, I Sip. Please hit the 5-star rating and leave us a review. If you'd like to learn more about Northern Lights Winery, text us at 604-670-4046 or visit us on social media at Northern Lights Winery.